I'm gonna show you real quick this scope here. This is the Sniper brand scope, and we are doing this on our 338 Lapua. This is the Christensen Arms Modern Precision Rifle, and I'm gonna do a full review on the rifle as well, which I am going to put in a link on the end of this video, which is not gonna be live yet. So if you're watching this video, make sure you watch the Christensen Arms review before it goes live to everybody else. Welcome back to Smok'n Jay's Garage. Today let's talk about this Sniper brand scope. This is from Precision Optics. And I actually bought this off of Amazon because they have a gunbroker listing, they have a website, and they have a store on Amazon, and Amazon was the cheapest. This was actually $100 off. It was normally $399 on their Amazon store. They said I had the last one, and it was $299. Of course, after I bought it and looked back at the same link, they had some more on Amazon, so maybe I didn't get the last one. This is a 5.9 by 30 zoom by 60, and it has a 35 millimeter tube. Now, I'm not a real big fan of the 35 millimeter tube because scope rings can be difficult to find. This does come with scope rings, so you're set on that. As far as you have scope rings, you may or may not like these. They may or may not be the right height that you're looking for, but it does come with scope rings, so keep that in mind. Now, the box itself actually was pretty impressive. It's got a magnet on it, three magnets on it to hold it on. Comes with a manual, and obviously I have the scope out. I already have it mounted on the gun, but nice padding for the scope. You have a spot right here where your sun shield, you got your 3-inch sun shield, which I have on the scope right now. You also have a screw on just the little sun, the honeycomb sun shield. It is a lighted reticle, so it comes with batteries. Now, much like lighted reticles, it only takes one battery, like pretty much everybody else's. It comes with 2 batteries though, so you have the one you need and you have a spare. And it also comes with a very nice cloth with their name on it. So I was pretty impressed with the packing. One thing also, an Allen key, so that you can, or an Allen wrench, so that you can adjust the scope, the rings for the rings on the scope. The screws on it are 10 millimeter, so you have to have your own 10 millimeter wrench. But the Allen wrench for the top of the rings, it does include. And then it just had the scope and everything was in a bag and stuff like that. So we're going to set this aside. I will tell you the one thing that I did have an issue with was the Amazon ad says that the scope is in MOA. The directions say it's MOA, and the box also says that it is MOA. By the way, this is a first focal point scope. But the turret itself says that it is in mils. So I contacted them. They did get back to me, and they confirmed that it is a mil scope and that this is the wrong turret. And they have they sent me a tracking number, which I don't have yet. I have the tracking number. I don't have the actual physical cap, but they are going to send me a new cap that is set hatch marks for MOA. So I put this scope on my 338 Lapua. I did contact them prior to purchasing this scope because they also have a 5x40, and I asked them if it would handle the recoil of the 338. They did get back to me and confirmed that the 5x40 was rated for the 338, but they did not say anything about the 5.9 by 39. The 5x40 was normally $299 on Amazon. The 5.9 by 39 was, which is the one I have, was typically $399 on Amazon, but it was on sale for $299. So I thought I'm getting a little more expensive scope maybe for the same price as the non-expensive scope. So this is the one that I went with. I have a number of rounds down range with it, so we're going to show you how it turned out. Now, I did throw a different scope on this gun, and I'm going to put the footage right here for you to see, and to see that the gun, to confirm that the gun shoots. We'll show you that footage quick. Right up here, but then I walked it up over here, got a nice good group over here, and right here, this is my best group. That is actually 3 shots, but obviously the gun
can hold a group. So we'll see what our $299 Amazon scope will do on it.
So as you can see, the gun itself shoots. So now we throw this scope on here and let's see if the gun can still shoot. Now I went to the range yesterday and just about deer hunting season, so there's a lot of people out at the range, a lot of people sighting in. Very hard to get some footage at the range, so we'll throw in some footage from the range, but we're actually going to go over the majority of this here. I got my targets with me and everything so that you can actually hear me talk and we don't have all the shooting and the people in the background. Now let's go over the scope a little bit closer. A couple of things that I really like and a few things that I don't like. All right, now let's start with the scope on the end here. Obviously we have focus, pretty standard. We have our zoom here, nice little handle, small handle to help you adjust it, plus the serrations here, which are fairly deep to give you a good grip on turning that. Our scope rings that it comes with, as you can see, those are pretty high. Those are almost close enough to be see-through rings, but not quite. We have the zero stop on our turret. It lifts up, and then we can adjust. If you can listen very carefully, I think that you can hear those clicks, very defined clicks. When we push back down, you can see that we are not perfect on our, those clicks don't line up exactly where our lines are. On our elevation, on our windage, same thing here. We got that lock on it. I think you can hear those clicks, but when we go to push that in, we are not perfect on our lines. Now, once you have your there we go. We just have a screw here that can be taken off with a dime or a penny or something, or a screwdriver. And then this cap will pull completely off so that you can set your zero. And then the top is very similar but a little bit different. We have that same cap that can be removed with a dime or a penny or a screwdriver. There is an Allen key inside of that you have to remove this cap off to set it to your zero and set it back on. And then once again, just lift it up to adjust it. While we're talking about that though, another thing that I didn't like, the recoil on the 338 is enough that it pops this cap up on its own. The dial did not move at all, but it did pop the cap up so that it would be allowed to move. We do have our adjustment here for our yardage. Now all this does is move your focus. It actually starts out at 20, 30, 20, 20. Starts out at 20 yards and goes to 900 yards, and then it has the infinity. So that is going to go ahead and adjust your focus only. It has nothing to do with adjusting your yardage for your actual crosshairs. That has to be done with the turret. And then we have, this is the cap for the battery, obviously. We have blue, 1, 2, 3, red, 1, 2, 3, and green, 1, 2, 3. That is for our lighted reticle. So I do like the options of the different colors there. As we move down the scope, you can see that we have another spot here. We can mount whatever it is we would want to mount on top of our scope. Not sure what we need to mount on top of our scope, but we do have that Picatinny rail on top there that we could mount from. And then we have our sun shield over here. It's a 3-inch sun shield. Now, I read the Amazon reviews, and the most common complaint was that this scope is very large. It is true, this scope is very large. Without the 3-inch sun shield, this scope is about 18 inches long. If you look on the Amazon ad, it has the specifications for the length, for the height, for the width, even the length of individual pieces. It shows it is in centimeters, not inches, but they are accurate. And it does tell you that this scope is 18, almost 19 inches long. So be prepared. If you are putting this on a small gun, this is a large scope. One of the things that I kind of don't like about it, as you can see, I have my mounts mounted a little bit farther forward than what I would have liked to. You can see that I'm one tooth past where my actual rail ends and I'm one tooth forward over here, and I would like to be back one notch on my rail on the mounts, but my scope itself is all the way forward. You can see I just have a tiny little crease over here, basically as far forward as I can, and I would like to actually have this scope centered a little bit more, but this is where I need to be for my eye relief, so I really didn't have an option of mounting it farther forward or farther back. This is where I needed to be, but I would have rather have my rings more centered. That wasn't an option. The scope is very high, particularly on this gun. You can see I've got plenty of room here in between my scope and my barrel. And I mean, if I didn't have this guard over my barrel, you can see that I've got a little bit of room here. Plenty of room here, more than I would have liked to have. But I have an adjustable cheek well, so really not a big deal. Just something to keep in mind depending on what you are mounting this on. These scope rings are very high. All right, let's get into more things that you really care about, and that's the accuracy. How does this gun actually shoot? Or how does this scope actually shoot on the gun? We know the gun itself could shoot really good. I showed you that with another scope. Let's take a look at our targets here and see where we ended up here. Now, I set this out. I did not have a bore sight for this, so all I did was take my bolt out and I just went to the 50-yard line. I eyed up my doggone freaking barrel, and then I set my scopes on my crosshairs on my target. Figured that would get me close enough. My very first shot at 50 yards was right up here, and then I just started adjusting my scope and walking my way down until I got on target, and then I moved out to the 100. I did everything at 100 yards from there because that's the longest that the range I was at goes to. So you can see I've got several groups here. Most of these are 6-shot groups. I ripped my target here a little bit taking this down, so I'm going to try to hold this where it stays nice for you. So you can see there, one of them is kind of off over here. This is actually the one, my first shot, that I got at 100 yards, and then I moved my sights over a little bit, and I got a group of 6 right over there. I believe that's 6, 2, 4. That is a group of 6 right there. And then I moved up here. You can see I've got a group of 6 over here. This group was not quite so hot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is also a group of 6. I had one that was off here. Now that very possibly is me, not the scope. Had a nice little tighter group of 6 over here. That one actually doesn't look like 6. It looks like it's only 5. That is 6 shots there. So it's holding a pretty good group. Now this is my second target. I let my barrel cool down now, and that nice carbon fiber barrel really doesn't get very hot. At no point could I ever not grab a hold of that barrel and hold it. But I did start to warm up. Once I went and took down my target, put up a new target, that barrel had some time to cool a little bit. When I started back again, I was a little bit off here with that cooler barrel. After 2 shots, still aiming center mass, that moved right back up here. Not positive that's the gun itself or the scope. My other groups here, you can see I was had more like 2 groups over here, although this is one group of 6. I had like a group over here and a group over here. And then I moved over here, and you can see a little off on all of my groups, but pretty tight groups. And then my last one here, that again, that doesn't look like 6 shots, that looks like 4. That is not 4 shots, that is 6. There is literally 2 shots in that hole, and there is 3 shots in that hole. They literally look like 4 shots, but it's not. There's 6 in there. So putting another bullet in the exact same hole is definitely possible with this, but didn't do it consistently. My groups are still not quite as tight as I would have liked them to be, but very sub-MOA. The gun claims to shoot sub-MOA, it does. The scope is letting us shoot sub-MOA groups at 100 yards. So can't really complain as far as that goes. I put 55 rounds through this scope. So enough that I think that if I was going to have some issues recoil-wise, probably would have done it. I also, when I put up my second target, I took my turret here, I gave it a crank both ways, and then set it back to 0 to make sure that as I was moving it one way and the other, that, you know, once I make an adjustment, will it come back to that 0? And as you can see, we did come back to that 0. I also did the same with the elevation. I did the same with the windage. Gave it a crank both ways and brought it back to that 0 to make sure that it would really come back to that 0. And we might not have been perfect, but you can see that we definitely would have hit what we were shooting at if we were shooting at a deer. Even some of these here that are off a little bit, even if you were shooting at a deer or something at 100 yards, even at double that, at 200 yards, even though you're an inch and a half off, you still would have hit the target that you were going for. So, and again, now some of these could be me. I've got a set of bipods on here, but I don't have sandbags or anything on the other end of the gun, so this is just me holding it, hopefully still. So there is some room for human error in there. So for the price of this scope, I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. Now long term on this gun, my intent is to put a Mark IV Leupold scope on it. Those are a little bit pricey. After you spend a couple $1,000s on a gun, putting a $300 scope is not ideal, but I gotta say, I'm actually pretty impressed with this scope. I wasn't unfamiliar with this brand, but I'm not hating it at all. Now, especially if you're gonna put this on a smaller gun, this scope might just be too big for what you're looking for. They do have other sizes, obviously. This is the size that I wanted to go with. But go ahead and check this out. I'm gonna leave the link on to their Amazon for this specific scope, and I will also leave their website in the description below. It might be a scope that's worth checking out for you, because not hating the groups that I got with it. And the scope actually has quite a few features. I'm gonna see if I can give you a shot of that lighted reticle, but I'm not positive if I can get the camera in there to actually show you that it changes color, but it does, red, blue, and green. And it's very, very clear. That's obviously something that's pretty important. I only went out to 100 yards, because again, my range only goes to 100. But it was very, very clear. What I did see a slight issue with is sometimes my target, the scope, the glass always looked clear, but sometimes my target would get kind of blurry. And I did adjust the focus a little bit, and then it would clear up, but then get blurry again. And I don't know for sure if that was me or if that was the scope, because sometimes when you're out and you're looking at the same thing for a long time, again, I had over 50 shots out there, so I'm looking through the scope. Sometimes your eyes just kind of, they are what is out of focus and not necessarily the scope. So I had a gentleman next to me take a peek through it, but he had been out shooting for a while too. He said he felt like the target was sometimes out of focus, but even when it was out of focus, we were still getting hits on it. It was just a little bit more difficult to sight in, but I don't know if that was me, my eyes, or if that was the scope. The gentleman who did take a look through it said he was there with his Vortex. He was sighting in his 30-06 with a Vortex. I don't know exactly what model of it was. He just said that was way, way clearer than what his Vortex was. And I don't know what Vortex he had. But very, very clear glass. Very impressively clear glass. So check the scope out. It might be something that you are interested in, and it might be advantageous to the gun that you're looking to put a scope on at a cheap price. If you're watching this channel for the first time and you haven't already, and you want to, boom, please subscribe.